Summary: Maria Theresa, Empress, The Making of the Austrian Enlightenment by Richard Bassett. Richard Bassett's Maria Theresa, Empress, The Making of the Austrian Enlightenment offers compelling and richly textured biography of the most formidable female ruler of 18th century Europe. With new insights drawn from unpublished sources, Bassett reintroduces Maria Theresa as both shrewd sovereign and complex human being, an empress who ruled for decades at the turbulent intersection of tradition, reform, gender politics, and Enlightenment thought, spanning from her contested ascension to her enduring legacy. This work paints a multidimensional portrait of a monarch who left an indelible mark on the Habsburg monarchy and on European governance. One inheritance of crisis, ascension to the throne. Born in 1717 to Holy Roman Emperor Charles VI, Maria Theresa entered world where female succession was not guaranteed, her father's pragmatic sanction. Legal innovation that allowed his daughter to inherit the throne. Was bold attempt to secure Habsburg continuity. However, upon his death in 1740, the young archduchess was confronted with immediate political chaos. Prior agreements, nearly every major power in Europe contested her right to rule. What followed was the War of the Austrian Succession 1740-1748, brutal struggle for survival that shaped Maria Theresa's early reign. Bassett captures the urgency of her political education during this crisis. She proved resolute and inspiring, famously appealing to Hungarian nobles for aid with her infant son in her arms, securing loyalty and military support. Although she lost Silesia to Frederick Roman to Prussia, she maintained her rule over the Habsburg core and emerged from the conflict as credible and determined monarch. To devotion and diplomacy, marriage is power. Maria Theresa's marriage to Francis Stephen of Lorraine in 1736 was both romantic partnership and dynastic necessity. Bassett details the warmth of their relationship and their domestic life, enriched and complicated by the birth of 16 children, yet the balance of power between the couple was clear. Francis was crowned Holy Roman Emperor in 1745, but Maria Theresa, the dominant political force. Bassett presents her as master strategist, using her children's marriages to cement alliances across Europe. Most famously, her youngest daughter, Marie Antoinette, married the future King Louis of France, an arrangement that symbolized the diplomatic revolution of 1756 and the realignment of European powers. But such dynastic diplomacy was always gamble, and while it strengthened Austria's geopolitical standing, it also sowed the seeds for future upheavals. 3. Absolutism enlightened, reforms in the modern state. Bassett spends considerable time exploring Maria Theresa's reform agenda, arguably the most influential aspect of her reign. While she never identified as an Enlightenment thinker, many of her policies reflected Enlightenment ideals of rational administration, fiscal responsibility, and public welfare. Her central aim was state modernization, not for ideological revolution, but to ensure the strength and survival of the monarchy. Some of her most transformative reforms included administrative centralization, reduce the power of regional estates, and increase the authority of bureaucrats appointed by the crown. Tax reform. Nobility was made subject to taxation, and revenue systems became more efficient and consistent. Military modernization. She reorganized and professionalized the imperial army, laying groundwork for Austria's long-term military resilience. Educational reform. Maria Theresa introduced compulsory primary education, created teacher training institutions, and sought to standardize curricula throughout her domains. Legal codes. Criminal law was revised, torture was curtailed though not abolished, and the foundation was laid for more equitable judiciary. Bassett notes that her reforms were grounded in Catholic maternalism. She often referred to herself as the mother of her people, softened the more austere elements of absolutism with personal concern. Nevertheless, these reforms strengthened imperial control and helped lay the foundation for the Habsburg Empire's continued relevance through the 19th century. 4. Faith and prejudice, religion and social policy. One of the most complex and troubling dimensions of Maria Theresa's reign was her approach to religion. Devout Roman Catholic, she viewed religious unity as essential to political stability and moral health. Bassett explores the contradiction at the heart of her policies. While she reduced the papacy's influence in imperial affairs and subordinated church courts to state control, she also imposed aggressive religious conformity across her realms. 2 aspects of her religious policy stand out. Antisemitism. Bassett is candid in addressing Maria Theresa's hostile and discriminatory treatment of Jewish communities. She levied heavy taxes on Jewish populations, restricted their movements and professions, and expelled them from parts of the empire. including Prague. While some restrictions were later eased, her reign marked a harsh period for Jewish life in the Habsburg lands. Protestant repression, though less severe than her anti-Jewish measures, Theresa also targeted Protestants for persecution in areas like Transylvania. Protestants were forced to convert or face displacement. Her policies aimed to suppress religious pluralism, which she viewed as a threat to imperial unity. Bassett does not excuse these actions, but frames them within her worldview. Maria Theresa believed that morally upright, religiously unified society was necessary to preserve the divine order and the state's strength. Religious intolerance cast shadow on her otherwise progressive legacy, illustrating the moral limits of enlightened absolutism. 5 Wars and Realignments. From Silesia to the 7 Years' War. Maria Theresa's reign was punctuated by military conflict. After the loss of Silesia to Prussia during the War of Austrian Succession, she remained fixated on regaining it. This obsession influenced her decision to seek new allies, France, Russia, and Sweden, in what became known as the Diplomatic Revolution. The result was the 7 Years' War 1756-1763, in which Austria fought alongside France against the Anglo-Prussian alliance. Despite early victories, the war ended inconclusively. Silesia remained in Prussian hands, yet Bassett emphasizes that Maria Theresa's real victory was strategic survival. The Habsburg monarchy emerged stronger with more disciplined military forces, improved finances, and clear administrative authority. Throughout this period, Maria Theresa's leadership remained unwavering. She played a direct role in diplomacy and war planning, often outmaneuvering male advisors with pragmatic and emotional intel. Approach. Bassett illustrates how her personal fortitude became stabilizing force during years of protracted conflict. 6 Gender, power, and rulership. Bassett returns frequently to the theme of gender. Maria Theresa, as the first and only female Habsburg ruler, confounded 18th century norms. She never styled herself Empress in her own right, but always as Archduchess of Austria or Queen of Hungary and Bohemia. Even as she dominated court and cabinet, she managed to project both maternal care and imperial authority. Balancing act that won her loyalty. Across male-dominated aristocracy, her performance of gender was carefully calibrated. She emphasized family, piety, and humility in public, but behind closed doors, she wielded power with determination. She remained devoted to the idea of monarchy and hierarchy, resisting the more radical implications of Enlightenment equality, especially for women. Still, her example expanded the possibilities for female leadership in Europe. 7. Maria Theresa and Joseph Roman II Legacy and transition. In the later years of her reign, Maria Theresa increasingly shared power with her eldest son, Joseph Roman II. Their coregency was marked by ideological tension. Joseph, product of Enlightenment thinking, pushed for radical reforms. Religious toleration, abolition of serfdom, and increased secularism. Maria Theresa resisted these changes, favoring more gradual and traditional approach. Bassett explores their sometimes fraught relationship, emphasizing Maria Theresa's insistence on maintaining her authority and moral order. While Joseph is often seen as the great reformer, Bassett argues that his mother laid the groundwork for his vision. Her innovations in education, taxation, and governance created the infrastructure he would later use to reshape the empire. Maria Theresa's death in 1780 marked the end of an era. She left behind centralized and revitalized Habsburg state, large and strategically married family, and legacy that blended conservatism with reform. Her reign prepared Austria for both the upheavals of the French Revolution and the eventual modernizations of the 19th century. 8. Conclusion. The Empress and the Enlightenment. In Maria Theresa, Empress, Richard Bassett offers richly layered portrait of ruler whose life defies simple categorization. Maria Theresa was devout Catholic and modernizing reformer, traditionalist monarch, and pioneering woman in power. She expanded education but enforced censorship, promoted meritocracy but persecuted religious minorities, ruled with compassion but clung to hierarchy. From Bassett's account is not just biography but study of Enlightenment monarchy, its possibilities and contradictions. Maria Theresa was not an ideologue but pragmatist who used Enlightenment tools to fortify an absolutist regime. Her reign shows how deeply the 18th century was shaped by negotiation between old and new ideas, between power and principle. Bassett's exhaustive research and lucid prose make this biography intellectually rigorous and deeply human. Maria Theresa emerges not only as the most powerful woman of her time but as one of the most intriguing leaders in European history. Mother, monarch, and maker of modern empire.